ride.
Want a lift?
Hey! Okay, dude, let's see what that jalopy can do!
What's a jalopy?
First off the line.
Yeah, I'm sure they're feeling pretty silly right now.
Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome back to Megas Month. So today's episode we're going to be reviewing is TV Dinner, which is kind of fun. Yeah, this episode is just kind of them going off to go kind of basically just fix the TV, and it winds up spiraling into this big thing. And also, the Glorfs make an appearance in this episode, but not as an antagonist. I'll explain that in a bit. But in any case, this episode does open up with the Glorfs, who are in the middle of making this massive super weapon that is supposed to destroy the Earth. It opens up with Gorath asking all of his commanders for results, and asking his immediate subordinate how things are going, and of course the Glorf commander points out that things are going well-ish, but he offers Gorath some of the specs on it, but Gorath points out that he just wants to see the results, and points out that he's tired, and also points out that he wants it fully operational soon. At which point the Glorf commander then proceeds to point out the very obvious problem with making a planet-destroying weapon, and that he could accidentally destroy Megas in the crossfire, and obviously that's a very big problem, because obviously the Glorf need Megas to get home just as much as Kiva does. So of course, getting home is obviously it's very counterintuitive, the fact that they're trying to destroy Megas alongside the planet. But Gorath points out that he doesn't really care if it gets destroyed or not, because he's kind of tired of just losing the Coop all the time by his own admission, and he points out that if he can't have the prototype, then nobody can. So yeah, he's just determined to just destroy it alongside the Earth. But in any case, it then cuts to Coop, who is who as we find out is currently setting up a big spread to watch pay-per-view wrestling. He's just set up this massive wrestling spread. He's invited Kiva and Jamie over, and obviously Kiva has to be there because obviously she doesn't have a place of her own. She's for obvious reasons, she has to kind of crash with Coop because well, her home is like a couple thousand years into the future. So yeah, or rather more closer to 1,500. But yeah, she lives in the very distant future. She doesn't have an apartment or anything else that she can just hang out with. But in case Coop is just excited to actually just be able to hang out, and Jamie points out that Coop seems to have gone a little bit overboard with the spread, which of course he kind of did, because it's Coop, he's a big eater. But in any case, he points out, and while Kiva is just pointing out that she's just very happy to actually find out what all of this pro wrestling stuff is about, pointing out that she obviously, for very obvious reasons, Coop, she knows full well by this point that Coop has been incorporating wrestling moves into his fighting style with Megas, and he's kind of curious to figure out what the actual thing is like, and even points out that she actually wants to see some of the rules and strategy that go into actually wrestling. But of course, Jamie points out that kind of implies that there really isn't any strategy. But in any case, as Coop is going in to actually go and turn on the TV and get ready to boot up the wrestling match, the TV just doesn't work. He straight up just turns it on, and it immediately goes to static after booting up for several seconds. And of course, Coop has no idea has literally no idea what's going on, and starts kind of clawing and banging on the TV to actually just kind of get it to work. And Jamie and of course Kiva points out that that's very unfortunate, while Jamie points out that maybe the cable's out, and Coop does come up with a solution, pointing out that maybe the satellite doesn't have enough power, and decides to go outside and, as he puts it, juice it. And basically what that entails is him hooking up his mom's satellite dish to Megas' car battery, and then just hitting the engine and just kind of supercharging it. And And Jamie obviously goes with him and points out the very obvious flaw in his logic about how he's doing this in a giant robot instead of a car. So, or rather, it is his car, but it's also his giant robot. But Coop points out that he's just going to juice it a little bit to just kind of boost the signal a little bit. And as he says that, he then proceeds to step on the gas, which of course causes him to actually supercharge the dish as planned. But this also causes a massive EMP wave that breaks every single TV within the certain radius of it. What we find out is that he breaks every single TV in at least Jersey City, if not further into the wider New Jersey area, and possibly even farther beyond that. But yeah, it's just this very massive EMP wave that just goes out in all directions. And Coop points out that should probably fix the problem. But what he doesn't find out is that his little EMP wave that he created actually attracts the attention of a giant alien thing that we find out that is apparently the giant. It's just referred to on the wiki as a planet-eating monster. That's what I'm going to refer to. But in case Coop's EMP wave accidentally wakes up the planet-eating monster, which then proceeds to make a beeline toward Earth. And meanwhile, as that's happening, Coop and Jamie are actually having a burping contest to actually determine who actually gets the comfy seat. And Coop and of course this winds up going about as you expect. And eventually Kiva winds up interrupting them and pointing out that they could just share the seat. But Coop points out that he isn't too fond of sharing with Jamie, and points out that this is a competition between men. And then proceeds to pull out soda and a bag of Pop Rocks, which of course Jamie immediately panics over, pointing out that that's actually a really bad idea. And for good reason. Jamie has a very good point. I think this was disproven. I'm not 100%, but basically what Jamie's logic here, and this is a common myth with Pop Rocks, and I'm not entirely sure if it's true, but I would assume it is. I wouldn't put them both in your body at the same time, but it could. I don't think it would be particularly. I don't think it would kill you. I don't think. I mean, I'm not 100%. I'll have to look that up and then put it in the video. But I don't know. I don't know for 100% off the top of my head if this would actually kill someone. But basically, Jamie's logic is just that don't mix Pop Rocks with soda because that could mess up your stomach and possibly cause irreparable damage. And but Coop just kind of points out that Jamie's just scared that he'll lose. But Jamie is actually genuinely concerned for his friend's safety, pointing out that he heard stories from someone he knows that he goes like through like a domino list of all the different people that he heard it through. But basically, someone he knows knew someone else that tried it, and it apparently didn't end well for him, according to Jamie. So for very obvious reasons, he's very concerned for his friend's safety. But in case Kiva decides to interrupt before Coop can actually finish doing what he's about to do, and tells him that maybe he should go check on the TV first before he actually decides to do something stupid. And of course, Coop immediately goes to do that, and immediately goes to check the TV, only to discover that it's still not working, and is very confused as to why. And sure enough, we do find out why, because unbeknownst to any of them, the planet eating monster has just arrived near Earth and has been gobbling up all the satellites. And we do find out why it does that in a minute, but it's implied to do something with electromagnetic radiation and stuff like that. It's implied to be attracted to frequencies and stuff like that, and that is later confirmed. But in case Coop doesn't know that he actually attracted a giant alien thing to his planet, Coop just accurately assumes that the satellite is out and something is up with it, and he has the trio pile into Megas so that they can actually go out into space and actually try and fix it. And of course Kiva immediately asks Coop what his plan is, and Coop points out that he was just going to find the satellite and make sure it's working properly, and sure enough points out that it'd probably be like a quick fix, maybe like 5-10 minutes. But then he actually gets there and actually discovers several large tendrils that are actually gathering up satellites and are actually eating things. And Jamie points out the very obvious problem that there seems like something is actually eating whatever it is behind the scenes, and sure enough, Kiva then decides to starts actually putting in some research, and what she immediately finds out is that as I said, the creature seems to just be eating electrical signals, and sure enough, Coop and Jamie then proceed to accurately point out that means it's actually straight up just eating TV shows. And Kiva points out that they're not wrong. That's basically exactly it. And Coop very dramatically declares that is the most despicable thing he's ever heard. And then declares that he's actually going to put a stop to it and finish this creature off as quickly as possible. And of course, Kiva points out the very obvious thing about how they shouldn't fly in without fully understanding what it is they're fighting. But of course, Coop doesn't really listen to her. He just kind of points out that he is going to approach it as carefully as possible, which for him isn't very. And then proceeds to pull out like Legus's laser axe and just kind of starts chopping up tentacles to free some of the satellites. And Jamie does kind of cheer Coop on, pointing out that of course that's like probably one of the least destructive ways they ever dealt with a bad guy, and that normally they wind up destroying a city or two before the bad guy actually goes packing. But then Kiva points out that doesn't seem like it's the end of it, and that whatever is the source of the tentacles is actually hiding out on the backside of the moon. And tells Coop to once again approach with caution, which Coop once again doesn't do that, and he proceeds to just kind of fly in guns blazing. And what they do eventually find is the giant planet-eating monster, which is of course very massive, and is a very big creature that is just eating everything in its immediate vicinity. And sure enough, Coop points out that he kind of lies a little bit, but he points out that he isn't particularly worried. But of course they wonder. But of course that then comes to the question of where the creature actually came from in the first place. And of course Coop just kind of sheepishly remarks that it's probably just because it got attracted there by some sort of electromagnetic radiation field or something. He just kind of makes something up because he doesn't want to admit that it was indeed his fault. But Kiva points out the very obvious problem about how it was his fault, and points out that the EMP blast probably didn't have anything to do with that. No, not at all, not whatsoever. But in case, Coop points out that is probably fine, pointing out that he's fought bigger, and Jamie points out the very obvious fact that no, he hasn't. This is in fact a giant planet-sized thing, and of course points out that he's never fought any creature this particularly big before. But Coop points out that it'll probably be fine, and he just needs to give it a good old Jersey City welcome. And what that entails is him just launching all the missiles, and I do mean that. I've said this before about how I think I've said this before about how the buttons change every time, but in this case he just presses all the various buttons that just says missiles, more missiles, all the missiles, and he just launches all the missiles at it, which is funny and amusing. But yeah, what we quickly find out is that doesn't do anything. It just kind of casually grazes the beast, and it just kind of lets out a groan of somewhat mild discomfort. But the missiles don't really do anything. Just hits them and it blows up. That's it. But of course Coop then points out that obviously that didn't work, and now needs to come up with another strategy. But points out that all he really needs to do is just kind of soften it up. And sure enough, then proceeds to fly to the surface of the creature and starts punching it as hard as he can with Megas. But what we find out via zoom is that really isn't working, like, at all. It literally Megas is just punching it, but it zooms out and it's like literally nothing is happening to the creature. It's just completely unfazed by any of what's going on to it. And it eventually zooms back in, and Coop realizes that that clearly isn't working. At which point Jamie points out the very obvious that it isn't working, and when Coop's kind of scolds him, pointing out that he isn't really being particularly helpful, Jamie points out that he just kind of wanted them to just go home and leave it alone, and but of course nobody listened to him, so of course they're not doing that. But then the creature actually finally notices that Megas is there, and grabs it with several of his tentacles, and several of them actually emerge. And Coop quickly realizes that it's too late to actually take Jamie's suggestion and tries to fly off. But several of the tentacles wind up grabbing Megas and start pulling it back to the surface. And Skiva tells Coop to put on full thrusters, which he does, but that doesn't wind up working, and he winds up getting pulled into the surface of the creature and into the creature's stomach. And Jamie points out that this is kind of a bad he feels like this is how it's all going to end. But he admits that he wished they had gone out into doing something a little bit cooler. And admits, like fighting, like as he puts it, just fighting space ninjas or something. That's what he predicted they would actually go out doing. But instead, they're actually going to get eaten by a giant space creature, and eventually it manages to pull them all the way in. And even though despite the fact that it actually winds up getting pulled inside of the beast's stomach, Megas winds up actually being fine. Coop manages to grab the edge of one of the creature's internal workings. And also in the process, knocks a Pop TV satellite into the stomach acid below, which does wind up serving a narrative purpose, but about how they quickly find out that they can't touch the ground or the stomach acid, or it'll be dissolved instantly. But but once again, it's just an excuse for the show's creators to just kind of shit on MTV, because of course they can. But of course, Coop points out that that's no problem. But also in the process, he actually winds up losing his grip, and they almost fall into the stomach acid. But Coop is able to start the thrusters at the last second, which he immediately points out which he immediately can't find right away because he doesn't remember where he put the button for it, and of course he winds up activating them at the last second, which causes Jamie and Kiva to become annoyed with him because he set it up, because he kind of waited until, because he kind of couldn't find it right away. But in case now they point out that they need to actually find a strategy to actually get out, and of course Kiva points out that obviously they're going to need to actually find some sort of strategy about how they need to figure out how to actually defeat the creature while also getting out of there safely, and suggest that they actually form some sort of plan. And Coop points out that that's good with him, and points out that he's more than happy to take a load off while they talk strategy. But and then sure enough, he puts his speed up on the dashboard. But in the process, he accidentally sets off the missiles again, which kind of causes internal problems for the beast. And Coop just remarks that he needs to rethink his button design. That's really all he suggests. But this actually causes the beast to actually unleash what Jamie actually describes as evil space boogers. And that's accurate. They look exactly like little flying booger things. But yeah, I don't think they're even really like sentient. They're just kind of like part of the beast's internal digestive system. They're just kind of these little things that are just there to help aid digestion. And Coop points out that they don't seem so tough, but until one of them winds up grazing Megas and winds up scratching up his paint, which he points out that is actually a very big problem because they're trying to eat his robot now. And then decides to pull out the Atari controller that he has installed inside of Megas and starts blasting all of the little space boogers with Megas's cannons. While he makes the sounds with his mouth, which is comically funny, and he's just kind of seeing that on his heads up display inside of Megas, and it's just a really funny scene where he's shooting all of these little tiny creatures while at the same time just kind of blasting them and playing a video game. And sure enough, that's exactly what Megas is. It's just a giant video game console that Coop just kind of controls to battle things. And of course it works because that's what the entire thing of Megas XLR is. But Coop quickly realizes that there's too many of them, and Kiva suggests that they actually make a retreat, which Coop does, and he eventually finds a little crevice inside the beast's stomach that he can hide in. But then Kiva actually, and of course this winds up working, the boogers kind of leave them alone. But then Kiva notices that she's actually receiving a lot of electrical signals nearby, and sure enough, Coop looks around and discovers that all the missing satellites that the beast has just eaten are just kind of chilling out in its stomach. It hasn't really eaten them yet, but Coop accurately concludes that if the satellite is anywhere inside this beast's body, it's probably in there, and decides to start following the debris to try and find the satellite. And sure enough, what he finds out is that the creature, and what Kiva points out is that the creature has apparently just been meandering through space, just eating anything that gave off an electrical signal. And yeah, it did. And what we find out is it's not just satellites. It's also various other bits of space junk and a bunch of other things. Just old ships, satellites, basically anything that can give off an electromagnetic signal. The beast was attracted to, and it just ate them so that it could just kind of feast off the electrical signals. And of course, they point out that obviously the satellite needs to be in there, and of course wonders where exactly it is the satellite actually is. But pointing out that he needs to actually find the satellite they're looking for if they want any hope of actually watching their show. And of course, Kiva does eventually point him in the general direction, while also pointing out that they need to actually find a way out as well. And eventually, they do kind of sort of find a way deeper into the beast's stomach. But the problem is that it's just this giant sphincter that, as Kiva points out, could very well crush them into pieces if Coop's not careful. But Coop does point out that it is like a video game he played before, and Jamie backs him up, pointing out that apparently. And I mentioned this before, but Coop apparently owns the world record in the very specific video game that he mentions is based on. It feels like, and Coop and of course Jamie points out that he kind of undersells the fact that Coop got a world record by accident, and Coop has to correct him. But he does point out that so long as Coop focuses and Coop times it right, they'll probably be fine. And of course, Coop points out that very well that he is hoping to time it right, and points out that he's not going to really worry about that. He's not really particularly worried about it. But as Coop is actually getting ready to actually move through the sphincter, several little booger creatures actually come back again, and Coop quickly realizes that he actually doesn't have time to actually properly time it, and points out and merely tells Kiva and Jamie that it's going to get rough, and then just proceeds to drive through the chamber as fast as he can. He just kind of goes through and makes sure and tries to time his way through the sphincter, even though he doesn't really have time to time it anymore. But and he just barely makes it. Megas' legs are just sticking out of one end of it, and the torso is sticking out the other end. But Coop does eventually manages to squirm his way through the sphincter and manages to get deeper into the beast's stomach, where he then finds a bunch of other debris that the beast has eaten, and eventually realizes that the satellite is most likely somewhere in there, since it's very close to the entrance of where the beast's mouth is, and concludes that the satellite is likely in there somewhere. And sure enough, Coop then starts poking around with Megas, and eventually does wind up finding the satellite and tucks it under Megas' arm. And concludes that now that they found the satellite, they now need to find a way out. And Kiva points out the very obvious thing about how they could just follow the trail of debris, and eventually they should find the way out, which Coop points out is a better plan than any, and proceeds to start just flying through the beast's stomach, and does eventually make its way out of the main mouth, and somehow successfully returns the satellite to orbit by just pitching it into orbit, which is just a very funny thing, where he picks up the satellite, just throws it, and it somehow manages to land in orbit perfectly, because it's a cartoon, and that's kind of funny. It's just he picks it up, pitches it into orbit, and it works. But in case with that now dealt with, Coop points out that of course that seems to have to be the problem solved. But then Kiva points out that the beast is actually planning to eat the Earth, because obviously the Earth gives off a lot of electrical signals, and of course it's called the planet-eating monster in the wiki for a reason. But and of course she points out that they'll need to actually find a way to actually deal with the creature and stop it, or it'll eat everything. And Coop then finally gives his signature trash talk about how he's sick of this creature, about how it's messed up his paint job, made him miss his show, eaten all of his satellite, is planning to eat his planet, and he points out that he's finally going to take this TV eating sucker down to the mat. But then quickly realizes he doesn't really have much of a plan, because obviously fighting it the traditional way hasn't worked so far. They've blown up its insides, they've blown up its outsides, nothing has worked. So of course the three of them then start brainstorming ideas to actually try to figure it out, and Coop and of course Jamie points out the very obvious thing about how they're probably not going to eat something that can eat planets for fun, but then Coop comes up with remembering the fact that that one time he ate so much that he got too lazy to actually be able to reach the remote once. Then points out that overeating usually does him in, and when Jamie points out that no it doesn't, he then points out that obviously a normal person who isn't Coop. The logic of basically Coop's logic is sound. It's just the fact that he used himself as an example doesn't work. But basically the logic is that if they overfeed it, that'll probably slow it down. And sure enough, Kiva then points out that Megas apparently has an EMP missile that she points out she could easily overclock to actually blow the creature up by making it sick, by making it overeat itself. And then proceeds to start putting in the work to actually start doing that. She starts overclocking the EMP missile's electromagnetic pulse signals and prepares to fire it, which winds up working until Coop points out that recognizes the EMP missile and of course Kiva wonders how he knows about what the EMP missile is and points out what he thinks it is. And what we find out is that Coop had apparently a long time ago, because he didn't know what it did, and especially since they haven't used it up until now, Coop admits that at one point he modified the EMP missile into a fridge that he just stored all of his stuff in when he wasn't using it. And of course, Kiva becomes very obviously annoyed at this, pointing out that obviously that was their only chance of actually defeating the creature, but of course, Coop does also point out that he actually had a lot of good snacks in there, pointing out that he had soda, Pop Rocks, and a couple other things. But when Jamie realizes that what Coop just said about how he listed off soda and Pop Rocks that he just got launched into the belly of a giant space beast, Jamie then proceeds to become interested. And sure enough, they initially note that the creature seems to be getting bigger, which they initially think is a bad thing. But then, when Jamie realizes that the creature is actually eating soda and Pop Rocks, he points out that this is obviously that he's just kind of yeah. So I should mention, Jamie just has a look of pure devilish joy on his face because he realizes what's about to happen to the giant creature, and of course, Kiva tells Coop to actually hightail it out of there, but Jamie tells them to take their time as well, pointing out that he actually wants to be there to watch it. And sure enough, this planet-eating monster then starts inflating like a balloon because it ate Pop Rocks and soda, and then eventually just explodes. And yeah, this is what I'm talking about. That wasn't planned at all. They were planning. I mean, the EMP missile works, but not in the way the crew was actually planning it. But in case Coop, Jamie, and Kiva managed to make it all successfully back to Earth in time to watch Coop's show, while the Glort, remember when I told you how they kind of are there but not as antagonists? Yeah, as I explained, they had made it a giant planet-killing weapon, and eventually pull out a null space to actually use it, and but as they're about to activating the weapon, and it's going through its transformation sequence to become this big scary gun thing, the various chunks of the planet-eating monster wind up hitting their ship, and the missile and the ultimate planet killer has just kind of the ultimate planet destroyer just ironically gets destroyed itself with Gorath just kind of bemoaning the fact that Coop always seems to beat him and wonders how Coop keeps beating him, even though he's just this overweight guy from New Jersey, and it is kind of curious as to how Coop keeps beating him, even though admittedly, and I explained this, Coop didn't really intend any of that. The Glorf were just kind of off doing their own thing, and that was completely independent to the plot of the episode. Coop didn't even know that they were doing something evil at all. Coop just kind of beats them by pure luck, by beating the giant planet-eating monster by pure luck. He launches Pop Rocks and soda into the monster's stomach, which causes it to explode, and it winds up hitting the Glorf ship, which causes their ultimate weapon that they've been working on to just kind of go down the toilet. So, yeah, that's what I was talking about. The Glorf had an evil plan, but they didn't get to execute on it. It was mostly just used for comic relief, which I find kind of funny. But he's now back on Earth. Coop is still bemoaning the fact that his show still doesn't work, and does point out that he has actually tried everything. He's fixed the satellite. He's fixed the satellite in orbit. He's juiced his own satellite. he's made sure just everything works, and doesn't fully understand why nothing is working. But it's at this point where Coop's mom, who I should mention we don't actually see, and I don't think we ever actually see her, but Coop's mom calls him from the main house, and Coop merely tells her that he's in the basement, and then she reveals why the TV actually isn't working, and that Coop apparently never paid the cable bill, which he quickly realizes after he pulls out the tab and realizes that, oh, I never paid the cable bill. Mom asked me to pay the cable bill. I never did that. So of course, Jamie and Kiva just kind of look at him with a look of pure disgust on their face, pointing out that very obviously that should have been the first thing they tried. But it wound up being a cool little adventure, so no real complaints. But I mean, Coop quickly realizes that now he needs to go off and pay the cable bill, and tells him that he'll be back in lickety split, but in the meantime, just help himself to some snacks. But Jamie points out that it's actually coming down like cats and dogs outside, and points out that he probably shouldn't be going out in that. But Coop points out that he'll be back lickety split, and he'll probably be fine. And then he goes outside and goes to fly off to wherever it is that I don't know where you go to pay the cable bill, because I don't pay the cable bill in my house. But he goes off to go pay the cable bill, and in the process we find out that the rain isn't actually rain, but actually just bits of the plant-killing monster that are just kind of raining down from the sky. And as Coop is on his way to pay the cable bill, he actually winds up scooping up some of the monster and starts eating it, as we find out in the end credits. But yeah, this episode was just kind of fun. I did enjoy this, and so yeah, obviously you got the Glorf, who were just kind of. Well, this is the second episode in the row where they kind of set up the Glorfs as kind of like comic relief rather than actual serious villains. And sure enough, they are serious villains and they are fun little bad guys. But this is the second episode in the row where they've done something with the Glorf where it tries to paint them in a more serious manner, and then it doesn't follow through with that because the episode doesn't need that as part of its plot. So first and foremost, you had the last episode where the Glorf were going to get a backstory that never came true. And they never explain what the Society of the Glorf or anything like that. And in this episode, they have this giant, massive weapon that they're going to use to finally destroy the Earth once and for all. And Coop just kind of accidentally destroys it because he's been off doing the actual plot of the episode, which is funny and hilarious. But I did like this episode, and this is probably one of the big. I think this is one of the bigger antagonists in the series that we've seen so far. It obviously is a giant planet-eating creature, and I don't think there's anything bigger than that. But there are definitely more impressive and more harrowing fights in the series for sure. And I do remember a couple of them that are kind of interesting and fun. But for the most part, I don't think they've ever been this big. They haven't really been this big or this massive as an antagonist. Obviously this is the first time Coop has killed a giant creature the size of a planet, and I don't think there's ever going to really top that. That's going to be one of the bigger antagonists in the series, and it is going to be pretty hard to beat size-wise. So yeah. In case, I did like this episode. I did very much enjoy it, and yeah, and then tomorrow we will actually be continuing onward with our streams. I'm actually going to be streaming something for my birthday, so I hope to see you all there. I'm going to be doing a birthday stream, so yeah, I think this is my first birthday stream that I've done, so I'm excited. But in any case, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out. And you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that are my way saying thanks. So be sure to check those out. Link is down in the description. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent one. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is actually, or rather the bottom suggestion is actually the playlist for Courage Month, which it was one of the first ones of these that I did, and if you guys do want to check out that one, that was the last one I did. I'm very proud of it. I worked hard on that one. I'm working a little less hard on this one because there's less to do content-wise, but yeah, I am very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. So if you want to see my first go through with one of these, then by all means, again, link is down in the description. Go check that out. Go watch that, and go kind of maybe give me some feedback on that. People are still very much enjoying that first one, so yeah, I hope you guys will as well. If you like Megas XLR, you'll probably like Courage Month. But yeah, if you're liking Megas Month so far, you'll probably like that one. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!